Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, author of Visualizing Happiness in Every Area of Your Life and host of this podcast, Incredible Life Creator. And today I have Ms. Glenda Sentell Jordan with me. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Kimberly.
Yeah, I am so excited to get into this because you have a new book coming out and everything. But just so people know you, I'm going to go ahead and read your bio. So, Glenda Sentell Jordan was brought up in a loving, godly home. She contracted polio when she was 6 months old, which noticeably slowed down her physical development. Although her childhood teachings focused on the blessing of eternal existence with God in heaven, Glenda always had a desire to see people live an abundant life in the here and now. After completing college, Glenda became a certified public accountant. Early in her career, she earned a Master of Business Administration as well as two other audit related certifications. She later joined one of the world's largest telecommunication providers and eventually became a director of the Internal Audit organization. Over the years, her body experienced deterioration from the aftermath of the original polio infection. Fueled by her desire to see herself and others live the abundant life Jesus promised us, she began searching for ways to restore her body. Prior to leaving the corporate world, Glenda also joined a private mentoring group focused on assisting self motivated individuals acquire cash flow assets. Currently, Glenda is pursuing a black belt in martial arts and mentoring individuals who own independent businesses. She also owns her own business so she can share many of the health and wellness products that helped her on her journey with others. All right, you have had quite a journey. So why don't you just start out and just tell us, how childhood was and how you got to be doing. We kind of outlined that a little bit in your bio, but sometimes it's good to know people's stories so we can know how they got there.
Sure, sure. Well, I was 6 months old when I contracted the polio. So, the doctors told my parents that my leg would be about 3 inches shorter. My right leg would be about 3 inches shorter than my left, and they would have to cut the tendon, and I would be dragging my foot. And the best case scenario was I would be in a leg brace for the rest of my life. Well, my parents didn't understand a whole lot about healing and God's will in that area, but mom immediately just said, no, that's not going to happen. So at that time, they had machines that they would hook people up to kind of delay the atrophying of the muscles. So mom would take me to those places, and they couldn't have hooked me up to the machines as much as I needed them, nor could they have afforded to. But the machines had a long waiting list, and it was very expensive. But she watched what the machines did. And so for the first 6+ years of my life, she exercised my leg 5+ hours a day. So as a little girl, I would sit on the couch, and I was like 2 or 3, I could count to 1,000, because what do you do when you're sitting on the couch and your mother is working your leg, because the polio was on the right side of my body, the entire right side of my body. So I came out of the leg brace at 6, and I had a slight limp. It was not the kind of limp that you would say, oh, she must have had polio, because I dealt with that my whole life. People walking up to me saying, did you hurt your leg? I noticed you're limping. And I would have to say, I had polio as a child, and then they would get all embarrassed, but what do you do, So, but as I got older, life went on, and I wasn't using the muscles properly. So things began to deteriorate and continue to deteriorate. And then in 2011, I got a thermography. I'm not sure if you're from, you probably are in your field,
But
familiar
why
with
don't you explain it for other people?
okay. It's sort of like a picture heat map of the body. And if there's too much irritation, it's red. And if there's not enough circulation, it's blue, or it disappears. Well, what happened was that at the knee, my right leg turned deep purple and my foot kind of wasn't even there. Okay, so I knew that circulation was an issue, and I knew I was, coming up on a serious problem. And I had other people in my family that were ill, and I would watch them, and I would want to talk about, hey, God can heal you. But then I thought, this is kind of ridiculous, because I can't figure out how to make it work for me. So at that point, I started diving into the Bible. I selected 24 scripture verses that I meditated on. I've read them at least 3 times a day and meditated on them. I mean, this is like, I'm talking like 2012. So this is, been a while.
Mhm.
And I learned as I studied, one of the big ahas that I got, I did not realize that everything God gave us, he has already given us. That when he died on the cross, he provided all the healing. So for me saying, heal me, is kind of not quite right because he's already provided that. It's more like me coming to him saying, help me understand how I can receive this because it's already there for me. Okay. So I had all those learnings as I studied and listened and read books and, gravitating everything that I could get my hands on. And so I began to try to do exercises. I made very little progress because I was exercising the wrong muscles, and finally in 2020, I got connected with a chiropractor who took me seriously because up until that point, medical people would kind of look at it and go, oh no, there's nothing you can do for this. And he took x-rays. And I learned that if I'm looking at you straight ahead, my hips were like at 11 o'clock. And that was, of course, part of the problem. And so my back was all contorted to make that happen and me still look at you straight ahead. So I had arthritis and bone spurs and all kinds of things in the back that I was dealing with. So that gentleman, put me on a regimen and I would go into his office and he would adjust me 3 times a week because I would immediately throw everything out the minute I started exercise. And I would work with his trainer. And at that point in time, I had to have somebody hold my leg and hold my foot because I couldn't exercise the correct muscles on my own. Nor could I even feel if they were moving. I had to put my hand on my leg to see which muscle was moving because the paralysis was still there. But it was 2020. So what happened was the clinic closed, and they were just getting ready to hook me up with a trainer and the gyms closed. So at that point, I went into prayer and I knew a lady, a mutual friend of ours, Wendy Hood. I knew that she did kickboxing, didn't know anything else about her, but I prayed and I kept seeing her face. So about the 3rd time I prayed and saw her face, I thought, well, I better give her a call because I was asking God, what do I do about this? How do I get help? And that's when I found out that she did coaching and a bunch of other things. So, and she was more than happy to come over and help me. So she came over twice a week, all during the depths of COVID and beyond, and help hold my foot while I, did the exercises and the things that I needed to do. So I began to progress, and so did my understanding of healing. And so I got to the point where I realized if I'm well, I need to act like I'm well and not just exercise the damaged part of my body. And that's when I had a conversation with Wendy with my new epiphany, and she suggested martial arts. Well, by this time, I knew she was a black belt in martial arts. And so that's what I've been doing. And I did leave out one piece. I did get post-polio syndrome, which is sort of like shingles is to chickenpox. You can get this syndrome if you had polio, multiple years later. And I started losing the use of my left hand, which of course was really not good because it's my dominant hand by far. But I did, again, the Lord led me to a lady that is involved in electrodermal stress analysis. You're probably familiar with that as well. But for those who might not be, it is based on Chinese medicine, and it measures the frequency or the energy that's running through your body. And then the equipment can also, it has been programmed to say, okay, this is where the person is out of balance. So what tinctures or supplements or whatever can this person take to bring it in balance? So I had that analysis performed and got some tinctures, and about 4 or 5 weeks later, the use of my left hand came back. That was 5 years ago, no issues, no problems. When you go on the website, for those who don't know about that syndrome, at least when I got it, I haven't checked the website lately, there was no hope, absolutely no hope. They said things like, take a warm bath and get a good circle of friends, get massages frequently, because basically you're going to end up in a wheelchair, and of course, at that point I knew, no, that is absolutely not, what God has in mind. So that one I got through rather quickly, but the one that was 60 years old took a little longer. So, and then along the way, I corrected my eyesight because, so I didn't, God did, but there are several verses that I had selected because they had lame in them from the Bible, right? Because I'm trying to walk correctly, but lame and blind would be in the same scripture. So I thought, well, okay, I've worn glasses since the 5th grade. I had stigmatisms. I went farsighted in my late 40s, and I was getting tired of having to put on glasses to see or do anything. So I thought, well, as long as I'm doing this, I'm going to throw in 20/20 eyesight as well.
Right.
So the eyesight substantially improved 4 years ago. And the doctor told me, and I was evaluating my faith when I went in, and I thought, I'm not sure I can accept that they're perfect, but I'm going to hear him say I only have to wear glasses part-time. That's exactly what he said. He said, you've got to, I'm giving you a much weaker prescription. Put these on if your eyes get tired and you need them. And then that was 4 years ago. And I recently got my driver's license updated, no corrective lenses, no need for anything anymore. And at 72, that's pretty good, because most people, even if they didn't start in the 5th grade, by 72, they're wearing glasses. And that was almost like a side benefit to the whole leg thing, because blind was in the thing. So then moving forward, people began to notice the changes in me. I've had several people, ladies, get teary-eyed. And one in particular, she had done cold laser treatments on me when my son was getting married in 2009. Because I'm sure you're familiar with when you have a son that gets married, they have the video camera on you and you're dancing. And of course I had this limp. And so I was getting these treatments to minimize the limp. And so she had worked with me at that time, and we hadn't seen each other in a decade. And we got reconnected, and I met her for lunch. Well, I was sitting down when she came in. Of course, I'm not thinking anything about it. I'm just telling her about my life. And then when we get up to walk out, she actually broke down and cried. So because the change in my walk was so different from what she remembered. And then beginning last year, I've had 3 people ask me to mentor them. Like, what are you doing? How are you doing it? Help me understand how you're doing it. And that's what convinced me that I needed to go ahead and write this down, because if people are walking up asking me, I originally thought I needed to get my black belt or something so that I could kind of go, hey, I've accomplished it. And when I wrote the book, the writing says I got a green belt. At this point, I have a blue belt. I'm 1 up now, but I still have 4 to go to get the black. So I'm still a pretty good ways away. But I thought if people were asking me, I needed to go ahead and put it in print, because there may be other people that don't know me that would also like to know.
I think a lot of people would like to know. I mean, the things that you've, went through since a child, and, just things progressing. And then you just I'm taking it back. I'm taking it back.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So, and is that the book that you wrote recently?
Yes. The book is Don't Give Up, Rise Up. Let's see if I can get to where there's no glare, maybe over here. And it's 24 ways to overcome obstacles and achieve your destiny. So in it, I in the beginning, of course, I write essentially the story I just told you as to why I'm writing the book. And I do talk about what I've implemented in my life, but I tried to write it because I've actually run into a gentleman who is dealing with post-polio syndrome right now. So I've already run into somebody who has the exact issues I'm dealing with, but that's going to be rare. Most people are not going to be dealing with a lifelong disease. They have other things that they're working on. So I tried to make it broader and talk about the principle and how to apply it. And each of the things are maybe a page or 2. They're not real long. It's almost like a little devotional thing that you could do. To read through. But in looking and answering the question people asked me, what are you doing? I felt that these 24 things were all critical to get to the success that you need to get to.
Exactly. And there's so many people who are suffering with, physical or, emotional, mental, spiritual illnesses or diseases.
Yes,
And, they just need some hope for one thing. That just like you went to that website and it says basically there's no hope. There's other people out there who they've had something going on with them for a long time and they're just, they've gone doctor to doctor. So, I know I had trouble with my hips over the last few years and, lots of massages, lots of doctors, just to keep everything like you said, your hips were torqued. Mine do that too, and so not because of polio, but they still do that. And just to keep everything lined up to be able to be active and stuff. So I know
right,
there's a lot of other people who would like some hope and also some strategies.
right.
So, do you want to share like, I don't know, one or two strategies of maybe what you have in the book or something you do every day?
Oh, sure. Um, well, key for me is establishing a communication with God. Um, and I call it the power source in the book. Again, I try to be broader, although I do refer people to the back where I get real specific on what I think is important to make
Mhm,
it be effective. But you've got to have a source of strength that you can plug into because as I see it, our souls are kind of like car batteries and they will run out of juice
mhm,
if they're not plugged into a source. So the first thing in the morning, every morning, um, I worship and I pray and I have a conversation with God. And in the book, I talk about things that I mean, sometimes I'll get songs I haven't heard of in years
mhm,
to sing. Sometimes I will get faces of people and I'll text them or call them. I mean, it's a different experience every morning,
mhm,
but it is an interactive experience. So for me, that is very important. The other things that I think are critical, even for somebody who hasn't read the book, is evaluating what you're thinking because we are unique beings in that we can actually think about what we're thinking while we're thinking it. I'm not sure any other animal has the capability of doing that.
mhm,
And so if we take a step back and say, what am I thinking right now? Is this going to help me? Is this going to build me up? Or is this going to hurt me? And begin to actually take control of those thoughts. Um, that's huge. And the other thing I think is that if you take a look at who you're associating with, who you're spending your time with, because Proverb says that the heart to heart is a reflection, just like the face in the water.
mhm.
And if the people that you have surrounded yourself with are not the kind of people that you would like to become in 5 years, then you might need to be thinking about how can I get in a different circle of people? How can I expand my friendships? When I'm not talking about a marriage problem, I'm just talking about life in general. So, but how can I set myself up differently so that I'm being influenced by people like I want to become?
Exactly. Yeah. And I was thinking about just your history. I mean, you had a mom who dedicated her life every day to helping you heal. And we all need that, people support around us too. Someone who go to bat for us, a person who will be there when we're having a bad day or when we're feeling or saying those negative things to ourselves. And we need that person to go, no, I believe in you. I'm
Yes,
here for you.
yes, definitely, definitely.
So as you were, as you got older and, started going into life and your different pivots through your careers and things, were there people in your life that were especially supportive or people that you remember that's like, yeah, that person really helped me when I was down?
Um, yes, there were some ministers along the way that I could say really, really helped me. I didn't really understand the value of what I've just said about friendships until the last decade, really. A lot of this is all new learning for
Mhm.
me. I was kind of Miss Average until I started on this journey, and I realized how much I didn't know
Mhm.
about life in general.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that my friends were nice people, but I don't know that I was selecting people that I wanted to become like. And they were, I had good friends that if I had a problem, I could call and they would be there. But they were not, their focus was on their next 3-day weekend or something. They were not saying, what is my destiny? What am I here? What should I be thinking about doing with my life? They weren't that type of people. So I've learned all that in the past 10, 15 years.
So if people want to surround themselves with like-minded people, what is the best strategy for that?
Um, I would say finding an organization where you have some common ground. One of the key things that helped me, and you mentioned it in my biography, was this private mentoring group that I'm involved in. Because they start out, and it is private. So if people were interested, they could email me at don't give up rise up book at gmail.com, because I have set up an email for the book. But they work with you on what your why is. And then when you get that down, then they start talking about who you can associate yourself with. And then later they move into a vehicle to help you, you know, accomplish that. But that has been a major blessing for me. And I'm not sure. And of course, there was people, I talk about the people that connected me with a chiropractor. They're in the mentoring group. Okay. So, but for that and the emotional support, I'm not sure I would be writing a book right now if it were not for that group, because they, did start out with, okay, let's focus on why you're supposed to be here on the earth, and are you actually accomplishing what you were intended to accomplish, and
Exactly.
I don't know that everybody thinks that way.
Not everyone does, but we our life is so short. It's just so short. And think about all the learnings you've had through the struggles, through your faith, through finding the right mentors, finding the right medical people. And what if, one day when you died, you didn't tell anybody? All that value is just gone. It's just
Oh,
gone. So the fact that you wrote it down in a book, you're going to help so many people.
well, that's what I hope to do, is to get it to people that are where I was 20 years ago, you know, because 20 years ago, I needed to read this. 20 years ago, I needed to read this.
Exactly. So I want to ask more about the going for the black belt. So, you started out in the healing mode, just trying to get everything working. But the wonderful thing about like martial arts or dancing or anything like that, you do have to use both sides of the body, which is really great for brain health too, because that's my background is in brain health and vision. Um, so I'm just curious, how did it go your first few lessons, and how did you keep going even when it might have felt weird and funny and different?
It still feels kind of weird to think that I'm doing it sometimes, but I, of course, I put a lot of trust in my coach, and she was saying that, and now I know it's true because I've seen the improvement, that martial arts is one of the things that will improve all the little support muscles, not just the main muscles that I was targeting with some of those exercises.
Mhm.
But when I was doing those initial exercises, the one thing I could not move the needle on at all was balance. I just could not. I would get up on the wobble board things, and I would not do any better than I did last time, no matter how hard I tried. And so when I started, of course, I was like exhausted. I mean, I could just do very little, and I was done. It was like, I need a break, give me some water.
Mhm.
And I would get dizzy. I mean, I was not. I was your typical 69, 70-year-old trying to do this. Okay. So I gradually got better. Like when I first started doing the roundhouse kicks, I had to hold on to a chair. Now I don't have to hold on to a chair anymore. So, and she also insisted that I do everything right-handed. It's easier for her. That's how all the forms and everything are made.
Mhm.
And of course, that's like the worst for me
Mhm.
because some of the moves I could do if I were doing it from a left-handed perspective, but I'm learning everything as if I'm right side dominant, which is
Uh-huh.
crazy. But I'm seeing the improvements. And one of the things I actually use it as an illustration to think about your thoughts. But one of the moves I've got to make is down on my left knee, um, with balancing on my right leg in a kneeling position. And then I need to swing the sword over my head and whack it while I stand up. Okay. Well, it took me over a year to be able to get down.
Wow.
And I still can't swing the sword. I can get up, but I can't swing the sword and get up. Okay. So and it, when I'm doing it, I feel like it's going to take forever, but then all of a sudden I can do it. One day I can do it. So it's been mentally disciplining because I've got to be focusing on what it used to be like, and don't worry about the fact that you can't do it now, because think about where you were 4 months ago and you couldn't do this. And so the first time I got to where I could get up on my leg, I've got 2 grown sons, and I see one a lot more than the other because he lives closer and he's got 5 children.
Mhm.
And I'm the number one babysitter, so I see him frequently. But he was over at the house, and so I said, "Oh, Matt, I can get up on my leg." So then I start to do it, and I said, "Now that you're watching, I hope I can do it." But I got up, and he said, "Mom, there are a lot of 70-year-olds that couldn't do that even if they didn't have polio." You know, so
That's
so
right.
so it's interesting because when I first start to do the moves, I do look awkward and lousy. But then, after a while, and frankly, I sort of got mad in a way after that post-polio syndrome. I'm just like, okay, this is a war here.
Mhm.
And I am absolutely not going to end up in a wheelchair. And the way I can guarantee that is I'm going to keep improving.
Mhm.
I'm not just going to stay still. I'm going to keep improving. And so that's one of the reasons why in a way, I feel silly doing it, but yet I'm driven to do it, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it really does. I'm not doing that right now, but I was doing CrossFit for several years, and same thing. I look pretty funny when I first started out with those weights and trying to get my form right, and trying to get the weight up over my head. But as you keep doing it over and over again and perfectly practicing the form every time, you learn, your brain learns, your body learns. And that's one of the amazing things about the body mind brain connection is you just keep teaching it and it remembers. It remembers.
Yes, it
So
does.
after a while, you don't even have to be thinking about it. You can just do it, just kind of like roller skating or something like that you
Exactly.
learned when you were a
Exactly.
kid. So, wow. And so you said you're mentoring some people. So this is separate from the mentoring group you're in, or is that in your mentoring group?
No, some of the people that have first approached me about this that are not necessarily a part of the mentoring group, although one lady is now deciding to join the mentoring group as a result of, working with me. But it's just me answering these questions. It actually helped me write the book a lot because I'd have these discussions and it was like, okay, this is what people want to understand. So it's just me ad hoc one-off working with them on whatever issue they're working on.
Mhm.
One lady's having trouble with her eyesight and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So, you said, when you get up in the morning, you have your praise time, you're reading your Bible, and have that time with God. And then what about the rest of the day? Do you have any other certain morning practices or anything else you do throughout the day just to stay consistent and to keep things doing well?
Oh, well, I'm um some would say I'm on the health freak side because I really take what I put into my body seriously. So I start my morning with a green drink, because if there's any weakness in my diet, it's fruits and vegetables. So I start out knocking that in the head with a green drink, and I put in a fiber stick, and I've got these amino acids, which is part of the products that I distribute, but they're really excellent in building the muscle. So I stick those amino acids in there, and antioxidant, and a couple of essential oils. And so I drink that. I start my morning with that plus some supplements. That's an everyday thing. And then generally there's one meal a day that's just a salad or something. I try to not cook one meal so that I'm getting all the digestive enzymes that I need.
Mhm.
And then I actually gave up the microwave a year and a half ago, I guess. That was a struggle for me. I mean, I approach that like a chain smoker. I am not going to use the microwave today because I finally, I think trying to think, Joel Robbins, I think is the gentleman's name. It's a natural doctor, but he had written a book, and in it he said that 96% of the nutritional value is gone once you use a microwave. So I thought, here I am doing all of this stuff to build my body back, and if what I'm putting in has only 4% of the nutritional value, I need to rethink what I'm doing. So there's a lot that I do in the food thing. Now, in the book, I talk about exercise and food, but I don't go into that in the level of detail that I just answered your question, because I'm not a doctor. These are just things that I have learned to do that I benefit from.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. So, do you want to share about the company with your supplements?
well, it's Nutrilite in excess.
Mhm.
And again, if people are interested, that same thing. Don't give up, rise up book at gmail.com. And I would be glad to talk to them. I mean, I've got one customer that was in a lot of pain with osteoporosis, for example. And the doctors wanted her to take shots. Well, she didn't want to take shots. So she knew I was into health stuff, and she came to me, and we set her up on 3 different supplements. And within a week of taking the supplements, her pain was gone. Now, some people, it takes them more like a month or so, but
Mhm.
her pain went away right away. So I've been able to help people with things and find that really fulfilling. But I'm not a doctor. So I'm just, going with what I've seen and what has helped me and what has helped other people.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's the best thing because all our bodies are kind of different, right? So
Right,
you have to see what will work for us and with our bodies.
right.
So beautiful. So, so the best place to reach you is actually on your email.
Yeah, Gmail. I
Your
haven't set up a
Gmail.
website. I'm just, as you
Okay.
know, I'm just starting. So
Mm.
I haven't done anything but set up a gmail.com.
Okay. All right. So now a personal question.
Sure.
What gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life right now?
Hmm. I've got 5 grandchildren. The youngest is 4 months.
Oh,
The
nice.
oldest is 10. And I think being able to share some of the things like we've talked about, um, and be able to be a part of their lives and influence them and see them. Um, I know the 2 girls that are oldest, 8 and 10, and I think they were a couple years ago, they were fighting. And, the oldest one was saying, well, she made me mad. And I was explaining, no, 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 no. No one can make you mad. You choose to be mad.
Mm.
And you just need to say, Jesus, take this away. I don't want to be mad anymore.
Mhm.
And she kind of rolled her eyes when I said it, but we were going up, they call me Gigi. Okay. So we
Uh-huh.
were going up the stairs, and she says, Gigi. And I thought she'd seen a bug or something. I said, what? She said, it worked. I did it and it worked. I'm not mad at Lena anymore. You know?
Aw.
So, so I would say feeling like I've a positive influence on the people I love
Mhm.
really makes me happy.
That is wonderful. That is so wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and sharing your story and, your book and an answer for a lot of people.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's quite an honor, and you're quite a talented lady yourself
Well,
with all that you've done.
thank you. So I have one last question before we finish.
Okay.
What is your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
I would say know what your destiny is, understand what you are here to do, and make a decision that you are going to accomplish that. And then take it a step at a time, sort of like eating an elephant one bite at a time, and walk your way to what you were made to do, because that's how you're going to be the happiest and the most fulfilled.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.